Hello everybody, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay, Italy, and Hearts of Iron 3, number 6. We left off having secured Iberia, and with our marines more or less just roving about throughout the African coast, in vaguely sub-Saharan and just Western Africa in general. We passed a few laws, which we probably should have done several months ago to several years ago, in order to increase our industrial capacity and basically just make our country a bit more efficient. We fight another naval battle against the British, which we sink a few of their ships, although our fleet is getting rather on the wounded side. And really all of that is more or less being taken care of. I am a bit worried about our marines, as they are kind of just out and about without very much protection. We build a few more convoys, we sink more British ships, and at this point the United States has just been attacked by the Japanese, so they're probably going to join the war against us. We also sink even more British ships, which is pretty spectacular. We're doing fairly well against the British, which is very nice. And, alright, let's see. The Day of Infamy, so we may end up having to deal with the United States sooner rather than later, which is less than ideal. In the perfect world, we would have conquered the British and basically defeated the Allies before Japan ever got the opportunity to attack the United States, and that would have kept them out of the war with us. They're still not in the war with us, which is pretty spectacular, although at this point it's probably just a matter of time, and probably not a matter of very much time. So if we're going to do the killing blow against the British, it's going to have to be done sooner rather than later. They also just breached into the Mediterranean by taking over Tangiers, which apparently I never bothered to defend, and which our landing is not actually succeeding at landing. So the situation is not desperate or anything, but definitely not ideal. We did just lose the ship, which is also less than spectacular. Luckily we pulled our marine group and transports out of the area and back into the Mediterranean so they could basically just reinforce, and we just dropped some armor in order to use the armor to just defeat the enemy in Tangier. And once we succeed there, we'll just bring a group of infantry to actually garrison the place. That way they won't be able to just sneak on in and take it and really just risk losing control of the Mediterranean any longer, as that is just something we really should avoid if at all possible. Our marines are back in positions where we can pick them up, and if we are going to try to launch a sort of killing blow against the British, we're going to have to see if our marines are capable of making landings against hostile forces with really just significant groups of enemy units. So in order to test out our marines' landing capabilities, we're going to go to war against Liberia. Now the United States just joined the Allies, which means we don't have very much time. The window of opportunity for us to launch a sort of Italian Sealion is not very wide at all. Luckily, we did just prove that our armies are able to successfully fight against an entrenched opponent just with the strength of our marines. So we're going to take over this last Portuguese base, as that will hopefully give us enough. You'll see they're very close to surrender, so once we take over these islands, Portugal should leave the war, and that will just be amazing news for us. That's one more country out of the running. And we'll rush these guys up and prepare for an Operation Sealion of our own. Now, first things first, we are probably not going to fare very well directly against the British. We don't really have very much in the way of convoys, and we've seen how much trouble our navy got into even against the coast of Africa, yet alone fighting the British on their home islands. So what we're going to do is, well, it'll be a little bit of a slightly shady thing, but I think it'll be worthwhile. And I think that we've already proven we're capable of it by attacking Liberia and dropping directly on the Liberians. What we're going to do is attack Ireland and try to take out the Irish as quickly and efficiently as possible. Now, if we take out the Irish, landing on their ports, which I believe are all of their victory points, then what we'll be able to do is rapidly puppet the Irish and give ourselves a safe staging ground for future invasions of the British Isles. Now, they do have a massive group of men. Luckily, it looks as though we're doing very well against them, which is fantastic news. We're doing much better than I would have anticipated, and I'm completely fine with that. That is amazing. Now, unfortunately, our Air Force cannot even get close to supporting us. It looks like the British are being fought in the Battle of Britain by the Germans. We're going to show them how inappropriately named Battle of Britain is, ideally. Alright, so our Marines did land. We're going to go ahead, pluck them up, and drop them on Dublin. We're going to get this group over. It has some transport capability. We're going to drop a group of armored in Ireland, and hopefully hold that southern victory point long enough for us to win in Dublin, puppet the Irish state, and then start carrying more men and materiel up. Bam! Just like that, Ireland is our puppet. They are now a safe route for us to get supplies, troops, everything we need into the British proper home islands, that whole bit. So, with that all said and done, we're going to organize our navy so that we can carry as many troops as possible in a single go. We're going to pick up the remains of that armored group, and just like that, we're going to start carrying as many people as we can up to Dublin. Thankfully, since the Irish are now our puppet, and we're in our puppet's territory, they will take care of our supply concerns while we're in Ireland. We're going to send 2 armored groups up to just secure Northern Ireland. We're going to send our Marines up to land in Scotland. Hopefully the British have as few defenders in their home islands in Scotland, as England really is the core of their country. We have our Air Force up north now. We're going to have everybody doing tactical intercepts. Our bombers are going to bomb everybody they can, mainly up in our Scottish landing site, and our naval bombers are going to try to keep the seas at least somewhat clear of British forces. Now, we are getting some pretty solid progress, and we did just take over the major port in North Ireland, all of which is great news. Bam, there we go. We have landed in Scotland. Now, we are facing some pretty stiff resistance. However, at this point, we can start bringing in our armor. Now, it is going fairly poorly for us, but with our armor in, it is now suddenly much more doable. And with that all said and done, we can keep picking up more and more units. We'll get those armored units back to the port so we can just pick them up and drop them straight off. Unfortunately, we need to keep our headquarters in our directly controlled portion of Northern Ireland. Everyone else, though, we're going to just ship over to Scotland and hopefully start pressing out of these landing fields and beaches and what have you. Now, we do already press forward in one area. Japan is making progress against the UK, which is great news. Not very quick progress, but progress nonetheless. Now, we are pressing out and doing well, defeating the British and just defeating the British. In the countryside, slightly further away from the beaches, we get our Marines back so that we can use them in another series of events. Singapore has just been alerted as falling. There was a slight delay between when it actually happened and when we got the alert, but that's alright. The main point is that the British are now fighting on all fronts. We're also going to pick up more infantry and just various other groups from Spain. We don't really have to worry about the British launching a landing campaign against us while we're invading them, because really, who would do that? That would just be completely foolish. We are forced to stop one of our attacks, as the British do have enough forces to just do enough harm that we can't actually advance, and you'll see they are launching a counterattack. So long as we're able to win the flanking battles and then just go ahead and surround them, it shouldn't matter. We also pull those infantry down to our Irish puppet, where we're going to pick up our Marines and start a secondary invasion. Now, the idea is, obviously, most of our, well, actually almost the entirety of our armored, really the entire armored core of the Italian Empire is in Scotland right now. So any other landing we're going to do is going to be primarily an infantry affair, and their jobs are just going to be to distract British forces away from the north so that our armor is able to clean up the area enough that we don't have to worry about losing everything. And at this point we control enough of the area that I'm not terrified of losing everything. Germany just decided that it's their destiny to attack the Soviet Union at a time when we cannot help either side. So that's cool. And anyway, our armies are going to hopefully surround these British armored units. We are being attacked in the south. We drop more infantry, and that seems to take care of it. Up in the north, we are losing a battle, so we have to cross the river and go back. There are a significant group of British defenders in Scotland. Hopefully they won't be too much of a problem. We're already out of convoys, so we're going to build 200 more. We had built 100, and they drained away in the time that this video had occurred. We got 100 extra convoys, then lost them all. We're going to attack inland with our Marines simply because we need to defend our armor. And we're going to pluck over another group of infantry, send them out to hopefully encircle that group of British forces. It looks as though the British armor is attempting to retreat into Edinburgh. Hopefully we'll be able to cut them off, and we do, and they are captured, which is great. So at this point, I am no longer terrified of us losing all of our men on the beaches. We are going to pull our mechanized group from the north and bring them down to reinforce our marines. And all of a sudden, that battle is going incredibly well. Our infantry is starting to spread south towards Wales, and our armor should be able to just roll down through the English countryside, and I don't imagine we're going to face very much in the way of enemy resistance from here on out. And if we do, we have a lot of armor and mechanized, so we'll be able to just roll around them. We also start researching all this industrial tech because we have a lot of research points to use. The Germans are making very minimal progress against the Soviets. However, they are making some progress whatsoever, so that's good. Now, I'm not entirely sure if we have the war goal to puppet the British. I'm not quite sure. I forget if we added that. I know I was going to try to wait to see what the situation would look like later on. Who knows? Maybe we did decide to puppet them. I know that when we tried to add a war goal, all that showed up was conquest, and I don't really want to conquer Britain. Ideally, we'd puppet them just so that we can use their local forces to defend our regime and just take all the areas we directly want. What'll really happen when they end up surrendering remains to be seen. We also sadly lost 2 of our 3 Marine divisions just defending the beaches. So I'm not sure if that means they were captured, if they all died, what. We have to retreat from London, as apparently there is a significant force of British soldiers really just defending that, along with various allied units. So they are pushing us back, but we're just going to encircle them now that the rest of our armor has arrived. Our Marines are just going to keep landing on all of the beaches that remain. And we do go ahead and quickly save the game because I'm not sure if we have puppets set up or what the peace deal is. Ultimately, though, it doesn't matter because the British aren't close enough to surrendering, just because they lost every victory point in their home islands. Now, this does make me a little worried. What could end up happening, since the Japanese are attacking over in Asia, is that the Japanese might get the final little bit of the peace deal, or the war score, and enforce the peace deal, which could very well mean, much like with Vichy France, that we get essentially nothing at all, which would suck quite a bit. Luckily, it doesn't look as though the British are really willing to surrender. I realize we still haven't shipped over our troops, our rebel suppression troops to the Iberian Peninsula, so that's a bit of a bummer. And looking around, there are some British victory points in India, and that's really the closest place. Everywhere else, they really aren't going to give us any victory points and end the war in our favor. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. When we come back, we're definitely going to have to deal with this whole German-Soviet issue, as Barbarossa is now in full effect, and if we're going to succeed, we're going to have to plan our next moves accordingly. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We will be back tomorrow with a very tense moment in our history.